Welcome back. Welcome to HERPath, the podcast for successful women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. Today, we're going to talk about moving your body when you feel like shit, when you don't feel like it, when you don't want to. And hopefully, by the end of this podcast, you will realize that you don't have to feel like doing it in order to get it done. And a lot of times we do things even though we don't feel like doing it, even though we feel like shit, even though we hate it, because we know that at the end of the day, the benefits are really worth it. And we're looking to look out for our future self, for ourself later on, that will definitely thank you for going through the muck, for going through the pain, for going through the suffering that you may go through when you want to move your body, but you at the same time really don't want to move your body. You don't want to exercise. Hopefully we'll, at the end of this, let you know that you don't have to feel like doing it. But sometimes you catch yourself in the middle of it thinking, you know what? This isn't so bad. Why don't I do it more often? And I should definitely, keep doing this. So I do exercise. I will say I do it at least 3 times a week. And that is, I've been doing it for so long now that it's just a routine. It's just a habit. And I feel off when I don't do it. But I honestly don't feel like doing it every single time. The hardest part for me is probably putting my shoes on, putting my little workout clothes on, and then making it to outside. Well, I usually work out at home. I go to my garage and I have my treadmill, I have my weights. Sometimes I'll go walking. There are some times that I go to the gym, but most of the time I do it at home. The hardest thing for me is finally putting on my shoes and putting on my little workout gear. And sometimes it's just those small steps of doing them that kind of propels me to just follow through with my intention to work out that day. And I do a combination of cardio and a combination of weights. And I absolutely hate doing weights. I think it is torture when I'm doing it. I used to work out with a trainer many years ago, and I used to do that whole wake up at 5 a.m. And the reason why I did it at that time was I was gaining a lot of weight and I really wasn't feeling good in my body. I had already had 3 of the kids by that time, and I just felt blah. I just didn't feel good. I was in residency, and so there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of poor sleep. There was, not so good eating. And I wanted to pick up a good regimen of exercise with the trainer who would show me what to do, would show me the exercises that would be beneficial to kind of work on some problem areas for me. And I would get myself up at 5 a.m, like 3 days a week to go meet this trainer. And I hated it every single time. Having a trainer that I would kind of almost like I was being accountable to him, showing up for him, really helped me follow through. But now I don't use a trainer. I just do it on my own because I know what I need to do. It's just about doing it. Ladies, I want to ask you how you get yourself to follow through with moving your body or exercising when you are not feeling up to it or when you are just really dreading it. What are some ways that you get yourself to follow through with the exercise? Why don't we start, Nancy?
Well, I absolutely love what you talked about with future self, making a relationship with your future self. For me, it's like, I need to find my why. Why is it important that I do this? And then a lot of times it's like, what are the consequences if I don't do it? So for me, that's how I do it. And then like putting my shoes by the door is good. Small steps, like a lot of times, for me, it's like I'm in the rhythm and then something happens and knocks me off track. And then I don't do it for a few weeks. And it's like, darn it, what's going on? But extending that self-compassion is huge. And I'll say to myself, okay, I'm just going to put my shoes on and walk to the mailbox. And once I'm out, it's like, I might as well just keep going. So for me, that's the biggest thing I do.
Yeah. What about you, Elise?
Yeah. So this is a tricky one. I love this. I love this conversation because I live this every day. So a couple of things work for me. When it comes to walking, I know that that's really important for me, for my, for my lung disease, for all the things. I have found that I can make excuses every day in every way. So first thing is, and this is something that I got from our teacher in the life coach school, Brooke Castillo, changing the name of it has had a huge impact on me. From walking for exercise to creating a walking practice. Just by saying it's not exercise, it's a practice, has changed all my thoughts about walking. So that's been number one. Having shoes, like the shoe thing is a big thing for me too. Shoes that slip on, very important. You don't have to bend over and tie those shoes. One less step, one less thing to get me off my track. And then the future self. Nancy talks about that all the time. I am a huge believer in the future self, and I want my future self to be strong and to be healthy and to be fit. And I think about that a lot. And then the last thing I do when I'm sitting on the couch under my blanket and I don't want to get up and I don't want to get out is I put myself in where I am walking, right? So I'll put myself in in the walking space and remember how good it feels. Because once you're out there, it feels good. You're listening to the birds, you've got fresh air. I've got my dog with me. Um, I'm listening to a walking meditation, which is also key. Walking meditations are very helpful for me once I get out there. But when I can put myself in that space and remember how good it feels, then I'm much more motivated to get up and get out.
Yes,
I also love a good playlist, a good rock and roll playlist. That
Yes.
music to me is very motivating.
How about you, Beth?
Yeah, well, I recently have had a challenge in the workout department. I've had an exacerbation of my autoimmune illness, chronic illness. And prior to the exacerbation, I was in a pretty set routine where I had trained my brain that my workouts were just automatic. And then when I didn't feel well, I actually could not exercise as I wanted to. And what I found during that time is needing to give myself a lot of self-compassion that I wasn't able to do physically the movement that my body was craving and wanting and that I thought I should be doing, quote unquote. And then reframing and asking myself, what can I do? Can I go for a 15-minute walk? And then having that self-compassion of that being good enough. And rather than beating myself up that I didn't get my heart rate to a certain point and start, and the sweating and the burning of the muscles. And what has helped me also in the past, like, you said, Gabby, is when you're trying to start a new routine to set yourself up for success. And like Nancy and Elise too, you talk about thinking about your future self. So envisioning yourself the next day, what you're going to do, setting out your clothes, your tennis shoes. For me, I do home workouts. And so pulling that video up on YouTube and having it ready to go rather than searching for it in the moment, it's not going to happen. And another trick that has helped me get motivated and just to do it anyway is a trick from Mel Robbins. I may be botching this a little bit, but it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Because in the moment, you already know that you're not going to want to do it. And that to just do it anyways, and just to give yourself to the count of 5 and go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I'm kind of like treating your brain like a toddler. Like a toddler needs direction. And so treating yourself like a toddler in that moment and forcing yourself to do it anyways, because you know on the other end, you always feel better for
Right.
doing it.
Right.
And so being the parent of your own brain in that moment is a trick that I really appreciate and like from Mel Robbins.
I love what you said about having compassion for yourself, or really looking out for yourself in moments when really it may not be appropriate to do heavy duty kind of activity when you're not literally physically you're going through an illness, you're going through something inflammatory in your body, and it's painful to exercise, or it's just going to make things worse in that moment. And you should rest, right? It's okay to take a break. It's okay to let your body heal, to let your body recover from something, and slowly, as you're able and willing to get back into it over time, that is totally appropriate. I think sometimes we're really hard on ourselves and thinking we need to be doing all the things despite, what our body is telling us. And then sometimes some people feel they need to exercise to get ready for something, for like an event. I need to train for a 5K, or that's why I'm exercising. I'm exercising because I'm training for, something, or I'm exercising because I want to lose weight for a wedding, or because I want to get for like some kind of point. And there was a saying I heard from, I think it was Peter Attia. He's this longevity doctor, who said, really, we should be exercising for the event of life. I don't know if those were the words that he used, but something like that, exercising for life, because at each stage of our life, our body changes. Our body, and especially for us women, as we age, as our hormones change, our muscle mass comes down, our bone density changes, our metabolism changes. And so exercising for life so that we can be at our physical best when each of these stages, hits us, because we're all going to go through it as women who are functioning and moving. So keeping up our muscle mass so that we are still able to, support our bones, so that we're still able to, in the future, get up off the commode, to, get up off the floor if I want to squat and kneel and play with my grandkids in the future, and be able to get up off the floor, to be able to, put my shoes on when I'm older. And those things seem trivial, but there are so many women that are suffering from chronic musculoskeletal pain, weakness, debility, because of, over the years, just lack of moving the body, lack of exercise, atrophied muscles. So, training for just life, I think, is really powerful if we think about it that way. We don't always have to be training for a 5K or a 10K or a marathon or Ironman or what have you. Just training for life so that we can have longevity with less disability, with less pain.
I love that, Gabby. And I experienced a little bit of that. I was on vacation in Panama last week, and my lung disease was really flaring up, and I was not able to do the excursions and the adventures that my family was able to do. And that really hit me hard, and that changed my perspective on how important everyday movement, everyday strength training, exercise, walking practice, all of those things are, because I said to myself, I don't ever want to go on another family vacation where I can't participate with them, right? That I can't do all the things that they did, that I can't go bird watching up a mountain or zip lining or all the things that they did. So I resonate with that. It's not about a special event. It's about life as your special event.
I
Yeah, and
actually
I'd
just,
never thought about it that way. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Exercising for life.
I just started doing stretching. Like I go to a place called the Stretch Lab where they physically stretch your body, which has been fascinating because I've had some low back problems as well. So yeah, actually I had an x-ray and they said, oh, you've got a very well used spine. And I thought, well, that was really a very nice way to say, like, I was getting arthritis and I'm degenerating. A well used spine.
Well, I like that.
I know. But stretching has been amazing for me. It's really helped more mobility and more flexibility and helping me get out of pain, which is
Yeah,
nice.
and as we
Right.
get older, it just gets so much easier to, to hurt ourselves. I wasn't driving, I was a passenger, and I reached back to do something, to give something to a kid, and just reaching back like this, I'm like, oh my God, my shoulder. What is that? And it's been hurting for like weeks now, just from reaching back. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been neglecting my arms with the stretching and the working out. And that's something simple, reaching, just hurting yourself, just reaching over. And I know that comes with lack of stretching and lack of, moving in those different directions. Cause I'm like this most of the time, typing, I hardly ever have to really reach or grab or do those kinds of activities on the regular. So being aware of that and working on those tight places to prevent injury. Cause now I can't sleep on it. I lay on that side and it's like, oh, dang, shoulder.
Other things I notice is and I think it's the endorphin release you get when your muscles are really stretched. It almost feels like it's just a big rush of chemicals flooding, your body and your mind, and it actually feels excellent.
Right. And then a lot of, women, we're exhausted, we have fatigue, and it's impossible to think, well, if I'm so freaking tired, how am I supposed to get some exercise in there? But while you're exercising, even though you're tired, with those endorphins, with that rush of those hormones, sometimes you get more energy. I know I find that when I'm like, oh my God, and I have to put like a show on, or put some good music on, something that's kind of like my distraction while I'm exercising. So I'm not really thinking so much about the exercise and more, I'm entertaining with the show or with a podcast or something so that I can get through it. And then I end up walking more or, doing more reps than I had anticipated because I'm like, okay, I'm just going to finish watching the end of the show. I'm just going to finish watching this. But I make myself do it while I'm moving or working out. And then there are some shows where I only watch them when I'm exercising or when I'm working out. So that's like my incentive for the next episode. Okay, I'm gonna do another, 15-minute walk, but I'm gonna, bring my iPad with me and watch my show with me instead of just sitting on the couch and watching it.
I wanted to ask Beth, the last time that we all got together, I was really taken by how much time you spend on the floor. Like you're one that sits on the floor, you were stretching on the floor while we were chatting and, having our morning coffee, you would be just moving on the floor. And I wanted to just pick your brain about that because I found that so fascinating. And how you made that part of your daily life.
Wow, that's a really good question. Thinking about it, being a nurse and specifically a hospice nurse, most of the time you are put in a situation where you're in somebody else's environment, and it's not always a situation where you can sit neatly on a chair to work on whatever it is that you're working on, or to communicate, or to hold somebody's hand when they're passing. And so hopefully none of my managers are listening, but or infection control people, but I have learned my practice is most like I crouch down a lot to get to people on eye level if they're in the bed, or I'm on my knees. I sit Indian style on the floor to do charting or to provide education to the family. Yeah, they're all sitting around maybe at bedside. And so then I'm sitting and kneeling on the floor, crouching down, teaching about end of life, disease process, trajectory of what's happening with their loved one. And I think also just watching some of my like role models as they age. I've noticed that, like, you know, I've met 80, 90-year-olds that sit on the floor Indian style, or just kind of crawl on the floor, and that it's just part of who they are and how they live. And it just kind of, I feel like it's like young at heart, keeping the kid, you know, the kid very present, the kid part of you present and playful, and yeah, being young at heart. And part of one of my, I'm reframing exercise, as Nancy, you were saying, like stretching. Stretching is exercising. It's just not that very like ego-driven kind of masculine yang energy that our culture, Western culture, views as exercise, but being more passive and embracing more of the feminine piece of exercising is stretching. Uh, Yoga Nidra is one practice that I do. It's laying and stretching and breathing and concentrating on different parts of the body. But also I'm in the process of correcting the curve in my cervical spine. And I have this special pillow that I lay on every day for 20 minutes. And that is, in my mind, it's a form of exercise, but yet at the same time, it is releasing and relaxing. And so I hope that answers your question. I had never thought that I spent so much time on the floor, but I guess I do.
There was a show that I watched recently called The Blue Zones, I think. And it's about these places, and I think we've talked about it before, where these people have like, longevity, like live for a long time. And one of those episodes, I think it showed that something that these places had in common, or people who live in these areas, is they do a lot more squatting and like sitting on the floor. Yes. Without chairs. Like their tables are, like a mat on the floor, and kind of squatting, or really low tables and kind of squatting. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm going to try that. And so I think it was for a soccer game. I decided I'm not going to just stand. I'm not going to sit on a chair. I'm going to squat. People were looking at me like I was squatting, taking a shit or something on the side of like, the soccer field. Cause you're not used to seeing people just squatting, just like, you're right. It's kind of like, we don't see that as something that you just don't see people just kind of squatting, not sitting on, a big lounger chair on the side of the soccer field or at the park. It's either you're sitting on a bleacher, you're sitting on a big lounger, or you're just standing. And so I did, and it was really hard because I was tight. I'm not used to squatting for that long, but it was a wonderful stretch, and it's a great exercise to keep those muscles strong.
And could you get up after you had squatted for a long
time? I did. I had to take little breaks to get up, and then, to kind of get back down. And it was good to get down on the kids level too, to be able to squat and, and I try to do a lot more of that at home, when I'm just, playing with Elisa on the floor, is to do a lot more of that type of movement instead of just sitting on a chair on the couch, to do a good, squatting.
That's funny. I used to have a yoga instructor who would eat his lunch in the squat position.
Uh-huh.
And then
it feels really unnatural at first when you're not used to doing it, but it keeps you really strong.
It does. I used to have a trainer too that he would have us do these things called Russian get-ups. Put us on the floor and he'd make us get up and down, up and down, up and down, which was really good now that I think about it. We hated it, but really gives a lot of strength and confidence.
Yeah. And and in primary care, we deal with a lot of musculoskeletal issues, and especially with a lot of older people who have difficulty just getting up off a chair, just, going upstairs. And so sometimes I show them just simple exercises they can do with their own chair, in their home, without any type of weights or any type of equipment that, will help them stay strong if they're motivated to just, kind of hold your chair, go like you're going to sit down, don't sit down all the way, hold it for a little bit, and then just stand back up, and slow repetitions over and over to kind of keep some strength in that lower body to be able to just do some of those simple activities. Well, hopefully that we've talked about some things that will encourage you to stay active, move your body, even if you don't feel like it. Rest when your body needs it so that you can recover and be able to continue training for life, looking out for yourself in the moment, but also in the future so that you can be at your optimal physical form. And we'll keep in touch. Y'all take care.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.